We're at this lake in the Okanagan region, and per the title of this video, if any of you know anything about the Okanagan region and know anything about peat bogs, you're going to be wondering, how on earth can there be a peat bog in the Okanagan region? Because the Okanagan region is known for being dry, and at this time of the year it's known for being hot. And in fact, we're not that far from the city of Kelowna right here, and there is today a heat advisory for high temperatures in Kelowna. So it is baking hot down in that valley, as it often is. And well, that's the answer. I said down in the valley. Relative to me, it's down, and it's down a long ways. The elevation here is about 1,750 meters. And that makes the climate cool, and they get a lot of snow in the winter that takes a long time to melt, and even in the heat of the summer there's not a whole lot of heat. And it's sort of an irregular terrain, and you get these lakes scattered throughout, of which we're standing at the edge of one. And the geology underneath here looks like it's primarily volcanic, and a lot of volcanic rocks tend to make acid soils as they decompose. And then, as you can see, it's surrounded by coniferous trees, and the foliage of coniferous trees, their leaf litter, when it drops on the soil, acidifies the soil even more. So there's all these trends trying to acidify the soil, and that acidifies the runoff that goes into these lakes. So the lakes tend to be naturally on the acid side. And as lakes do in many places, we are getting this lakeside vegetation. Likes the greater availability of water you have here. And it is starting to grow further and further into the lake in places. And one thing that is coming up that is very important is this moss that we see right here. I'll get a close-up of it. There's several species of it grown intermingled together. And the key thing about it is, if you look at it, it grows in these clumps, these little heads, these clusters of moss stems. And that is a dead giveaway. This is one of the peat mosses, or sphagnum mosses, in the genus Sphagnum. And that is characteristic of a bog environment. And that further accelerates the acidification process, because these mosses absorb nutrients from the water and secrete hydrogen ions to replace the nutrients that they absorb. And hydrogen ions, of course, are the key things that make acids acids. So now you have these floating mats of vegetation that are extremely acidic. And that is sort of the definition of a bog. And as you can see, this is not a very large area. There's the woods right there. So the whole process is very early on in this lake, and there's a special name for the process when a lake turns into a bog. It's called terrestrialization, and it's one of the two main ways that a peat bog can form. Here we have a little hole in the mat that defines the bog, and as you can see, it's all water underneath. And this used to be lake maybe a couple centuries ago. On the edge of the pocket bog, we have this little creeping vine winding its way through the moss. And this is Gaultheria ovatifolia, the western wintergreen or western teaberry. And it is a close relative of both our salal that grows in western British Columbia, and it is a close relative of the teaberry or wintergreen of eastern Canada and eastern US. And it has little red fruits on it, which you can sort of see if I push the leaves away. And those fruits are delicious little things. They're sweet and spicy at the same time, and they're a nice little treat when you can find them. And here's some bog laurel with some of the seed capsules that ripened from this spring's flowers. And the flowers of this species, as are the flowers of many Kalmia species, are quite attractive. They're magenta purple and quite showy. They look similar to rhododendrons, but they are cup-shaped. and that is the typical form of a Kalmia flower. And here we have another common bog plant. This is Ledum glandulosum, the trapper's tea. And as its name implies, you can brew a tea from the leaves, and the leaves are quite aromatic. All the ledums have quite aromatic leaves. And I am using ledum as a genus name, and that is not what people in the know currently do. They currently regard ledum as a section of the genus Rhododendron. So this is now a species in the genus Rhododendron, which I will put up on the screen. And anyhow, if you are making tea out of it, be aware that I have shown you some other plants which are common in bogs that are quite toxic, and you don't want to end up in the hospital or worse, the morgue, by making a tea out of the wrong sort of leaf. And again, you'll have to excuse the dappled light, but I can't find any that are in full sun. Here on the edge of the wetland, looking a little worse for the wear, something has been munching on it, which is a little bit of a surprise because this guy is known for being extremely toxic. This is the false hellebore, Veratrum viride. And yeah, don't eat it. It's poisonous. And it is not exclusive to bogs, but it often grows in wet spots. And this is definitely a wet spot. I had an excellent shot of these earlier, but I was having audio problems, so now I get to shoot them again in dappled light. Oh well. Anyhow, one of the things that bogs are sometimes famous for is bog orchids. And here we see two types of bog orchid in one little area. This greenish one here is Potentilla saccata, the slender bog orchid, and the whitish one is Potentilla dilatata, the white bog orchid. And I will show you close-ups of both of them together with their names. This video camera is unfortunately not the best at focusing close-up. And here, actually growing in the lake, we have a bunch of marsh cinquefoil, Potentilla palustris. And I am an old guy, so I'm using its old name. The correct accepted botanical name that people currently use is in a genus other than Potentilla. But it doesn't matter because old names are valid synonyms for new names, and the new genus it is in is a close relative of the Potentillas anyway. And I will show you some close-ups of the flowers that I took, which are reddish things with, if anything, sepals that are more prominent than the petals. And there it is. A little slice of peat bog in a part of British Columbia that many people would never expect to see any peat bog in. Happy exploring!